Welcome back, everybody, to the Valorant First Strike UMG Close Qualifiers. Man, what a match, what a match, what a match. I'm Taylor Reflection Noble, joined by Vansili and Buck. We're casting all that goodness, and goodness it was indeed, but TSM takes the first map. Vansili, what's up with that? How well do you think they played?
I think TSM played it very well overall with the composition that they had. Like I said, even as a caller guy, trying to look at, it's a triple duelist. What new things is TSM bringing to the table right now? It was uncertainties for me because I haven't seen that playstyle yet with the triple duelist from TSM, which, versus Energy, they did struggle onto this map yesterday, but they definitely picked it up here on the attacker side versus FaZe. FaZe, as Buck mentioned before, they did a great job with the pushes that they had at the beginning of the round with that Reyna, especially as we see right now from Corey, but they couldn't capitalize on the early numbers advantage. But you also have to give it for key players like FaZe, for example, that's just able to open things up there for the team.
There's two types of close games and two types of good games. There's the games where team play is taking control, and then there's the games where individual play back and forth is what's winning rounds. So you have someone stepping up and finding a 3K or a 4K or a massive hold. This was the former. This was just good team play in general. Even though we had top performers, the spread wasn't as vast. Exactly. It wasn't like we had one player who was doing so much better than the rest. It was just kind of like, okay, this guy's doing a little bit higher of a KD performance, but compared to the rest of the team, it's like not crazy. I will say that FaZe looked way better than maybe I anticipated. I thought that TSM would win that a little bit easier, but we did give them credit and say, if they were going to take a map, it needed to be this one. We came into this with the prediction saying 2-0, and I thought if we were going to have the 2-0, we needed to see, or if we were going to have a map win, for FaZe at all, it was going to have to be on Haven. I didn't think that we were going to get that on Split, and unfortunately, it doesn't come through on Haven either.
In these best of 3 series, it really is a make it or break it, right? You have to start off strong, right? And for FaZe, obviously, they didn't. Now, I say that. Now, granted, as you said, Bach, FaZe did play that well. Like, for it to be 13-9, it was a lot closer than I was expecting. That first half was incredibly back and forth,
Exactly.
And Vansili, that first half, again, back and forth. But when it came to second half, though, TSM really started to get ahead. Eco obviously made a massive difference. There were so many moments where FaZe was, really struggling. And even in those last couple of rounds, right, just having to resort down to Sheriffs, obviously, you're in trouble when that's the case. Why was second half so difficult for them?
Actually, whereas looked perfectly fine for players like Zachary too, right? So despite them being in situations where they may have to eco on the defender side or attacker side, I still, again, think that FaZe has the firepower necessary on a 1-versus-1 to be able to win fights versus teams like TSM. But where it kind of fell off, again, it's just the way that TSM has been very explosive into these sites. When I talked about, hey, they have to do a great job to keep Cutler alive so that they could actually entry into these sites with the information that allows Sabrosa and Drone to get into the sites, they did. I think there was only maybe one time throughout this whole matchup where I saw Cutler being the first death for the team, and they did a very good job to just enter the sites with that information.
Yeah, I feel like FaZe's issue was the mid-round. If you look at the early round, they actually did pretty well in the early round, especially on defense. You saw Corey getting aggressive and picking off players early, but it was the mid-round reactions from that. How do they adapt? And it doesn't feel like they adapted well. Even looking at that final round, you had that explode play on C that starts things off, but Bordel's lurking on A. And in the mid-round, they don't keep presence towards A, understandably so because of what's happening over on the C side. So it's well played by TSM. But FaZe was taken advantage of multiple times because of that, because they were adapting maybe a little bit too quickly in the early round, and it was affecting their mid-round play. So you end up having Wardell, who's already through the site, and even though it still comes down to a 1v1, that's because of the early round work. It was because they traded blow for blow with FaZe or with TSM over on the C site. So I think ultimately that's what FaZe needs to work on. They need to work on that mid-round read. They need to work on their mid-round play, because if they can adapt that, I think the scoreline gets much closer and potentially goes in favor of FaZe.
Yeah, because, you even look at TSM, there were several moments, right, where they would commit to a site, A site being one of them, right? And then they would pull a big audible, right? Phoenix would then run it back, push up, just kind of be that distraction. Meanwhile, though, while everybody from FaZe was distracted, trying to just lock down A, everybody else from TSM was rotating over and locking in C and getting the spike down, right? So big picks, big plays like that. And again, mid-game may be the struggle for them. For Marv, though, I guess he's not worried about the competition despite that 13-9 loss, because he was tweeting tweeting mid-map. Everybody was like, hey, man, bro, you're in a match, okay? So hopefully Marv puts down the Twitter fingers and is able to come through big in this next map, which is going to be on Split. But, Bach, I got to ask you a question because there was a big moment where you kind of mentioned, you know, the op play, right? Especially on offense. It seems as if the op is a little bit more awkward now when it comes to Haven. You're not finding as much value for that. But for Wardell, it really didn't affect him too much, right? I mean, he was just picking up the op regardless on offense. He was ready to invest that eco, but he was making good use of it. He was getting those big kills. He was getting those big first bloods. But for FaZe, they didn't value that as much. How much of an impact do you think that was, at least for the FaZe roster, not choosing the op on offense as opposed to TSM, who was kind of utilizing it a little bit more?
Well, that's the funny thing, right? You say they didn't choose it. They did. It just didn't work. You know, we did see Baby Bay pick it up a few times, but it was not exactly effective. And that's the case for a lot of teams. I would actually say, and I would argue, that Wardell's ability to use the op on offense here was more of a fluke. I would say that if you were to look across this entire event, even just Wardell individually on attack, his performance is going to dip. And we've seen that in other events as well with Wardell since the changes came through that affected the op. So I won't say that, oh man, Wardell's just built different and he's the best attacking opper. I'm not going to go that direction. But I will say he made it work here against FaZe. Can he do that in this next map potentially? Honestly, probably not. You know, I would say that we will probably see the attacking op continue to struggle.
Well, we're going to find out very shortly. The map is, in fact, loading, so you guys are going to take it away. But, I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, for FaZe, a big one, right? They need to tie this series up. This is a map they have to take to force a Game 3 to at least get that much closer to qualifying for the playoff bracket tomorrow. But for them, if they do lose, they will drop down to the loser bracket, a place they don't want to be. But TSM was for sure in a good spot. So I'm going to go and hand it over to you guys. Take it away. We're going to Split.
Thank you very much, Reflections. Like you mentioned, this is not an elimination match. It is a big game because if you win it, you do get into the playoffs tomorrow. If you lose, you are knocked down and you have to fight your way through another series to get to that point. So FaZe obviously doesn't want to find themselves in that scenario, but TSM is positioned to do so as we switch on over to Split. And TSM, they pick up the win on that first map, 13-9. It's not exactly a super easy, strong map coming in for TSM, but Split, depending on how things kick off, we could see it snowball very quickly for either team. And we often see that in Split matches. It'll be TSM, though, who's starting on the attack, and that'll make things a little bit more difficult for them.
Yeah. And this is where things have changed again for TSM, right? Going no sentinels on this map. They have a breach at least with Cutler playing as that breach. But what actually you could see that allows for more explosiveness, and that's flashes. Trying to go for this mid control very, very fast, but it's been held out very well by FaZe Clan to start things off from paint shells being thrown by Corey. But now they go through the ropes. They're going to try to move in towards the A side, but it's currently being denied by Zachary. Traded off by Drone at the same time, though, as the spike now picked up by Wardell. It's Marv with 2, but then Hayes retaliates. Cannot go for the third kill with the burst of the classic. That leads to Broza. The lurker was able to push it in towards screens. But as the smoke dissipates, he's going to get spotted. Trying to go for any kills that he can. Connects with the first, and there goes a drive by Bunny Hop by Baby Bay. And Sabroza's going to fall, and the pistol's going to come in the hands of FaZe.
If that smoke lasts like one more second, Sabroza has a lot of information. Not only does he get potentially a free kill, he might be able to spot out the location of Raze as well and isolate a 1v1 there. Doesn't go that direction, and FaZe pick up the pistol here on Split. Huge as well, starting on the defense, not allowing your opponent to get anything going for themselves early.
Let me show you how the boss does it.
But again, the map is still heavily decided. It's been that way for the entirety of its creation and inception. Marv picking off Hazed. Early start to the round as they again start to work towards B Heaven. They're going to be fighting against 2 players waiting as Baby Bay uses the satchel to get away the blast pack with the paint shells as well. But Drone has picked off Baby Bay. That's going to give them at least something to work with. Raucus is in a tough spot, has to fight in multiple directions, gets dropped by Sabroza, who hits a beautiful shot out of the Sheriff. Now Wardell's got one. He comes right through and gets ripped apart as the burst shot comes in. Now they don't win the round, but that's actually a great eco coming in from TSM, following up on the pistol. The only thing they bought, I think, was the Sheriff. There was no armor, so that's huge.
Well, a spike plan would be a cherry on a Sunday, and they weren't able to get spike plans for 2 rounds in a row there for TSM, so that could have been 600 credits on top of that of what they get, which would have helped them into this round here. But there is also a change in terms of agent composition that I didn't get a chance to say for FaZe. They also have a triple duelist set up on their end too, and where I thought, sorry, that Corey usually plays as a Raze on different maps, he's actually sticking to the Reyna, while the Raze is currently being used by Baby Bay. This gun round, though, coming in for TSM versus the bonus round, it's still going to be the bonus round that prevails as Raucus gets the first kill. But you can see so far, every single round, TSM is putting a lot of importance on this mid control, where it's seldomly played passively by FaZe Clan. But because they have these submachine guns, they have to push up a little bit more. So you have this player playing towards the rope. You have him pushing out towards the male side as well. But Drone is trying to keep things alive. But it's going to be the run it back from FaZe. They're trading off. And the information as well that it's open. They're trying to rush into B now. And Raucus has to hold his ground.
Raucus back sight. Doesn't really get an opportunity. Wardell gets dropped by Marv, though, who's having a standout performance here in the first buy round. 3 kills already as he gets around Pillar. Haste there with the pickoff, has to be careful, knows where this final player might be, and Haste finds the 3K. 2 HP surviving for Big Daddy Haste. TSM picks up a huge round in the first buy round.
That's game sense too, because he knew that Marv actually made it around the pillar right here. He sees him making around the corner, he's not shooting. So he gets the first kill, sees the second one, and he could just think about, okay, is he gonna re-peek? No. Gets that second one onto Hell, and when that immediate re-peek didn't happen versus Zachary, then he knew that Marv was going to flank around towards the other side of the default site, and he got the crosshair placement perfectly, despite low HP. You talked about it, Bach, how you liked and how you're impressed of how Hayes could actually get these frags, and he continues to do so.
That was just a miscommunication, excuse me, from FaZe.
Yep.
They didn't time that double peek well. That was the intention, was to have a double peek from both Pillar and under ropes, but it doesn't work out that way at all. So it ends up being a peek with a peek, and the delay between the two is just large enough, that it gave Hayes that opportunity. Now, Saprosa, not anticipating Baby Bay to be in that position, standing there the whole time, wondering if he's ever going to look back. As a result, it's a 4-on-4, and they do scoop up a weapon. Now, the B site is empty. They're not playing defense on B at all. They've just got one sitting on the backside of B, calling out the audio that's coming through from the site and letting them know, hey, they're coming this direction. There's a fault line coming out, but there's no one in that position. They do use run it back to get into the site and to go ahead and get that spike plant as well, and Drone will be able to secure it. No, he couldn't get it. He couldn't actually get it. So that almost cost them a little bit more than it should have, but realistically speaking, you know, the equipment and utility for FaZe is not what it needs to be to punish for that. So it will be a 4-on-2, and the spike this time is secured.
You got to thank your stars for TSM. That definitely was an eco round there for FaZe, because that could have been shambled right after when they didn't get that plant. So Zachary at this point just looking for any type of picks that he could get. And the fault line's going to come through. These last 2 guys only have pistols to work with. And Zachary, we talked about him, the sheriff in town, continues to pop heads with that pistol. And now that they salvage a weapon, that clock is ticking down, but technically with the positions that you have here from TSM, it should be an easy take. But Zachary still manages to get 1 for his troubles, and that's it. Make it expensive for TSM. The round still comes in for the attacker side. It's tied 2-2. And despite them losing, I think them losing Hayes at the beginning of the round here, Bach, was that cue for TSM to say, look, let's just try to rush down towards that B site, because eventually there's a possibility that they think that the stack happened towards the A side from how passively they played and how long it took before they decide to get that kill on to Sabrosa to start things off.
You know, we praised TSM for how well they played in that second round. We said, hey, they didn't win the round, but they actually did great damage. I got to say the same thing for FaZe. They didn't win the round, but they did great damage, and that's very important on this map. Economic control is huge with the way that this map can spiral out of control. Wardell dodges the curveball enough to get his vision back so the knives can slice apart his opponent, and they'll upgrade as well by scooping up a rifle. Wardell didn't have a lot of cash coming into this one. He's just trying to get away so desperately as he pops another updraft, takes some damage, and won't get spotted on the cross with some more. The rest of the team is grouping up into B main. The camera's been taken out. that'll initiate or rotate over, and you can see Reyna now starting to shift into position, and Raze as well. They're pulling a lot over towards B. But as I say that, Raze for FaZe heads back towards the A site.
Yeah, you saw that we had the satchel charge being thrown up high to try to take that cyber cage down, but it didn't. But they still make it through the site, thankfully, because a big smoke came from Omen up towards the heaven side, so FaZe allows his teammates to get into the site and to get the spike plant. And with that now, it's a 5 versus 4 for TSM, a 1-man advantage as FaZe trying to fight it back. They put the trap wire to watch the flanks so they could really focus on the B side into B. But TSM, look at them. They're not pushing forward. They're, well, with the exception of Sabrosa, just to try to get the first information. The flank there from Wardell does not commit as he whisks a couple of shots. But Drone still holds his ground towards the back of the site. Big crossfire set up as well from the B main. And that is going to be 3 rounds in for TSM and an ult available for the Breach into this round as well. That could allow them to go for this explosive take towards B continuously.
While FaZe has played well in the eco, they need to do something with that. So they needed to follow up on that strong eco round with even just a solid loss. I know that's weird to say, but they needed to take down a few players with them if they were going to drop that round to keep that pressure on TSM with the money.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't happen. And it's not to say it negates the performance and the save that came in a few rounds prior, but it does start to allow TSM to build things back up. So there's the boom bot to lead them in. A nade back as well. Flash going around the corner, but it's a paranoia from backside out of the hands of Raucus that slows things down. Now, I like this too. This is massive right now.
Exactly.
They know this push is coming this direction. They have the read. And TSM is playing this kind of slow, but that's a big kill. They needed that one on site. And now they can focus back in the other direction, and it makes it a little bit harder for them. Baby Bay does use the showstopper to send a rocket into the site, but taken out by his Raze counterpart. Zachary, unfortunate. It's a great shot onto Hayes, but at that distance, it's a dink only. Hayes survives with 5 HP. That's one of those come on, man performances where you're just like, seriously, game? Just like, how much closer did I need to be? Do I need to get out the ruler and start measuring inches here? Because that's a frustrating blow. But regardless, the buy will come in from FaZe, and we'll see what they can do, or whether or not they even try to shift towards the op, and they won't.
Yeah, you really just wanted to try to keep Raucus alive towards that A side as long as you can to allow your teammates to rotate back from sewers. But the run it back, I think that's within 2 rounds. We already had to run it back from drone available. And that's why TSM played a little bit more slowly. They wanted to use a run it back to try to see if that stack was happening towards the A side. And as there was no stack, it was just an easy open kill for drone and allow the rest of TSM to just storm inside the area. Go ahead.
I was going to say they needed more stop. They didn't have enough delay because they
only
didn't
had the
have
smoke.
much utility.
That was pretty much it.
Exactly.
Right? So the smoke towards the A ramp. But now that Rolling Thunder, as we mentioned, that allows them to take this heaven control. There is a bit of information from the trap wire, but they just have to try to hold as much as they can. This time Raucus, once again, cannot hold the site, this time on B. And that allows the plant to come in from Cutler one more time. And you're in a position for FaZe now. Do you want to try to save what you have? You already have Baby Bay committed down towards the hell side. And he gets the first one onto Zabroza. This is huge for them for the retake.
I like the way that Baby Bay is using those blast packs to just change position. The flash is coming in, definitely making it a little bit harder. As they try and go for this retake, it's looking promising.
Yes.
They've got themselves in a 2-on-3. That's the pickoff from Wardell. They try to go back and spot the spike, but they're not able to. There's a flash coming out, and it's all on to Hayes. Not able to survive. Corey with the big play to win a must-win round for FaZe. Things were starting to get a little out of control, giving TSM that ability to continue piling on rounds. Corey gets his first kill in that round, mind you. This is a player who played so well on Haven. Very aggressive as Reyna, but not able to match that here on the defense on Split. But the one kill he has is incredibly important because it gives them that round win. Unfortunately, the money is not good. You can see what it looks like, the buy coming in. Sheriffs for 2, rifles for the rest. It's less than ideal right now, and they're just juggling guns around trying to figure out what it's going to look like.
And they also had to use 2 of their ultimates for the retake too, the Neural Theft and the Run It Back. And even at this round, Corey, we thought it was going to be the kill and the clutch that allows him to come back into this game, but unfortunately gets denied early by an entry by Wardell. But Marv and Baby Bay are still planting their feet on the ground towards the A side. Marv continuing to dance around the sites like he does on both ends since the beginning of this matchup. So him getting off that Omen and switching to the Phoenix, playing it more aggressively, is coming into fruition for FaZe Clan, which allows him to hold down the site, even maintain a spike on the ground on the A side with 3 players now watching it, and Sabrosa is stuck in a clutch situation.
Good hold here from FaZe. Sabrosa, he's in the hot seat. Somehow doesn't take damage there. It looked like bullets passed right through him. As he moves into position, though, the Cyber Cage is down, but Zachary doesn't even need it. A crisp shot coming out from the Bulldog is the equalizing round that FaZe needed. They find themselves tied up at 4 apiece. Marv in control of the scoreboard currently for FaZe at 12-6, 10-6 for Wardell, who's got his ult ready and actually decides to purchase anyway. Thought for sure we'd see the pistols come out and just go with the knives, but not going to be the case here.
And as I mentioned before, when TSM was playing a triple duelist for their end on the previous map on Haven, things could be very similar for FaZe Clan as well once they take the attack. They have a great agent composition to flush out corners with the Raze and also be explosive with the Phoenix and Arena. And even have individual plays from Corey. When he was playing and lurking quite well on the defender side on Haven, he could very much do something very similar with mid control, solo plays on mid side. But speaking of mid, it's going to be TSM once again adding that pressure on that area. And Corey is going to have to play inside vents, the timing on the peak, and Corey wins it.
Wardell now moving up into the mailroom, wants to deliver some pain to FaZe. Their setup, though, is solid. Now Wardell believes he spotted a kneecap and was looking for it. And it's a well-timed peek from Zachary as the nade comes through. Zach finally peeks from balcony and gives more of an advantage here for FaZe, who's starting to solidify on the defense. Now, Wardell and Hayes start to fight back and start to find some opportunities here. The spike is pretty far away from that A site where we found some headway made by Hayes. Wardell has to go cross-map to try to make that happen, and I just don't think it's realistic.
No.
So Wardell's actually going to head towards B, and Hayes is going to try and fight his way towards that direction.
And that's it, because Hayes got that first kill. He's putting all those smokes towards the A side. He's trying to force a rotation. But look at Zachary. He's still holding his ground towards heaven. It's a fake plant. Now he's going to peek out. It's over. Well, he's going to get the spike plant at least, but he's at 30 HP. The paranoid comes through on top of that. He's trying to go for the individual play. The cloud burst to stay inside. Now running away. And as it dissipates, he's now spotted with a double peek. And that's a double peek that we wanted there from FaZe. It pays off in dividends this time. They get the defuse and a 5th round onto the board. But as I was trying to mention before, because Hayes got that first kill, he went for the execution for the smoke towards heaven, the smokes towards screen. And he's like, please rotate over, because as Wardell was still walking towards Ramen to pick up the spike, there was 30 seconds left. He doesn't want to make any noise. He doesn't want them to let them know that, okay, Hayes got the first kill, the second one's running towards mid, so we know where the 2 players are at, and we could guess where the spike is going to go. So he's forced to walk the whole way, and the closest site for him to go to with the time remaining was that B site. So you want Hayes to create that ruckus, force a rotation onto the A side, and that's why you saw him push all the way towards spawn 2, so that eventually he could be the one that's going to be lurking instead, but it doesn't pay off. FaZe Clan doesn't bite into any type of fakes, and they take the lead by 1.
TSM wants to move towards B, where you've got Omen and Cypher. And there's the smoke coming out. One's from Rockets. That'll allow them to pick up the ult orb. And there's the spray coming out, but they actually continue the push. Run It Back was not canceled despite that early damage coming through. It wasn't enough to stop the ult pop by drone. That opens things up on the site and gives them this opportunity, but you've already got FaZe in position. Now there's a great curveball coming out with the ult, and that does see some knives sent that direction. Now the spike's going to be planted in just a moment as Wardell dices apart Baby Bay. Marv with another opener, as Marv has been doing time and time again on this retake. He's looking for a target on the site, but it's actually Corey who's trying to spot the head over top of the box. Now, Raucus has done the damage. Drone has one as the Blaze Walls intersect. They're like making a tic-tac-toe board on the site, and it somehow works out for TSM. They cross streams. I'm told you're not supposed to do that. Ghostbusters 101, but they managed to make it work. And it's a 5-5 tie scoreline as TSM somehow come out on top of that strange exchange on the B site.
Definitely in the point of view of Corey, when you go through a blaze wall and you look back knowing where your opponent is at and you see another blaze wall that intersects into it, you're like, oh my God, are you serious? So unfortunately for him, that type of like checking the 50 to try to get an early kill was that time wasted. I mean, you could look towards the back of the site and maybe get that first kill. If the blaze wall was still up, he might win that second one. It's a guess that he had, and unfortunately, he runs literally into a wall, and it's going to be TSM that takes that round back. So 5-5 here, and Sabrosa looking to take control towards his B side, where you see some success coming in from TSM from this mid B side control. Zachary, we talked about him in a little bit, how he's able to hold his ground, but with anchored sites, they're trying to switch things out a bit too. From time to time, it's going to be Raucus playing there. From time to time, it's going to be Zachary. Zachary is holding it into this ground this time, but you see how passively they're being played. They're giving mid for TSM. They have trap wires towards heaven. They have trap wires towards vents, which there you go, opens up a weaker side on a hold for a sentinel on B.
The rocket used by Baby Bay, the fuse starts to expire, so it just has descended flying, no damage dealt. There's the Rolling Thunder to allow them into heaven. Nice low tripwire catches them off guard as they move their way into the site. They do have a chance potentially, but Corey catches Drone in an awkward position as he falls into the site.
30 seconds left.
But they back off. They surrender control, and they're going to play for the retake. That's the smart move
Spike planted.
from the defensive side of FaZe.
Out of charges.
Spike's been planted, and we're in 4-on-4 territory. Sabrosa gets inside dark cover and is waiting to potentially strike. A lot of targets, though, in this area. This is probably not going to work out so well for Sabrosa, so starts to change positions and ends up being able to pick off one, make it two as well as Sabrosa spins back. Great move. Corey is there for the ultimate punish as he drops into the smoke. And now there's a flash coming out. Shots coming through as well from Raucus as Wardell wasn't anticipating the op being in that position. An empty mag results in a reload, and that cost precious seconds on the clock. And it puts FaZe in a position where he finds the round win. 6-5 in favor of TSM, and the money for FaZe coming into this final round is going to be kind of uncomfortable. SMGs, maybe a rifle on Corey, and pistols as well.
It seems as though they're looking to explode towards the A side here for TSM. You do have FaZe looking to maybe put some kind of smoke towards his mid side. As I mentioned before, on the first half, they've always taken mid controller, taken it enough that FaZe kind of respects him for it. So once you throw that smoke early towards mid side, then you try to push towards A, but it's going to be Corey that decides to go for the hero play, pushing himself towards the A main, but he's waited and greeted by an operator. And also Raucus is greeted by a showstopper on the B side. So that's both sides weakened up. They're trying to get some sort of play moving forward. Baby Bay's just rocket jumping across the site and gets the shotgun kill there. But nonetheless, that opens it up. The neural theft also allows FaZe Clan to know that all the players are towards the A side, but look at how much control you have now for TSM. It's just over at this point. Last one at the spawn side, Wardell with a triple into this round, and TSM takes the first half 7-5.
Switching sides.
TSM playing Valorant, but Baby Play playing, he's playing Quake. He just goes up into the sky and that or TFC. I mean, he's got the conch jumping down from the Medic days for those that are boomer enough like me to remember Team Fortress Classic. 7-5 TSM. They have the 2-round lead. It's important to note that's coming off the attacking side as well. They'll now be switching over to the defense, which will make things a little bit easier for them. That said, we've seen impressive attacking sides from various teams, and I guess honestly because one of them was TSM. You know, they just played really well on that attacking side, so it's certainly possible that FaZe could fight back and try and force this to a third map, but the odds are certainly against them. They're going to be moving towards B, at least early on. They've got a lot of presence in B main. Sabrosa uses the bomb bot to peek. Great paranoia, and that's a solid follow-up as well. Catches his blind teammate, or opponent, excuse me, going for the boom bot. Now they're going to try and use what they've got to get out. Good damage coming through as well as they spam through the smoke. Sabrosa gets one more before being taken down. Hayes doing as much as he can to buy time for Drone to get into position. And now it's all on to Raucus. It's a 1-on-4. TSM looks to have secured the pistol in the second half.
Quite easily with the last kill too. And you saw the ability of the flashpoint coming out so that they could come up the ropes and even peek towards the rafter. So the synergy is there for TSM for that peek, for that kill, and overall, they were able to just hold quite easily that B garage just from the plays of Sabrosa as that raise. The paint shells to hold him back, the shots coming through, and even Hayes dancing around the boxes was good enough there to allow even TSM to waste enough time for the other players to rotate back. So FaZe Clan, as much as they want to be explosive and try to catch TSM off guard there, it didn't pay off. They ran into a wall into that round as well, and they're just going to try to change back towards a mid-side control just to try to see how they could feel out TSM's positioning towards this B side. But as I said, TSM now playing defense. One thing that's changed in their composition is that they don't have a Viper that they used with Hayes before, because not having a Sentinel, you can't really have just a Viper holding, especially with an ultimate into B side. You need to have players to rotate around, so you want to change your kit a little bit. But with an Omen towards B side, that's also good enough too.
That's great damage coming out early on as they make their way out on the site. Jump shots for Marved as well. This is problematic. TSM lost way too many resources while they come through on the push. Now Wardell, it takes the full magazine with the Ghost, but they'll get it back under control in time for one more and does significant damage to another target. Raucus somehow finds himself now in a 1-on-3. This was looking really good for them, and it quickly fell apart. Raucus, though, is still in this spot. Goes for the shadow step to get on the other side of Pillar. Spotted out, but it doesn't matter. 65 HP, 9 bullets, and no sound. Raucus gets rounded on by Cutler, who just continues to press W. And now he'll go ahead and secure the defuse. That's a great round from FaZe. It really is. And it was very winnable for them at one point. It's unfortunate that they don't pick up the round win, but economic damage is important. They're coming into now their first full buy round, and TSM has to spend a lot of money to get back into it themselves. So I don't want to discount what FaZe just did, because despite not losing the round, that is still, you know, very impactful.
Yeah. But you have to give it to the big play by Wardell at that point, too, with that Ghost. Him using his old clip to get the first kill, but still able to dash away and bait out the second player from Zachary that's trying to get that kill up towards B Heaven. That allowed Drone to peek out. He used Drone as a bait as well to get the second kill and even a third moving in. So that single-handedly allowed TSM to just get that round on that retake. It was a heroic attempt as well on that 3 versus 1 that ended on the 1 versus 1 for FaZe Clan. So yes, the econ damage is there. So for both of these teams, this round is actually crucial in the victory.
I will say this too, people are going to look at that round and be like, oh, you know, Cutler finally did something, because they're looking at the scoreboard. But like, the role that Cutler is playing for TSM currently is so incredibly selfless.
Yes.
He is the setup man. It's like always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That is the way Cutler plays this game in general, and I've talked about this in the past. Cutler is the wingman. He's the guy to put you in a position to find the big round. And he did so really well for them in that first half. But now he gets his chance to shine in the 1v1 and ends up making it work as well. TSM up 9-5 over FaZe. And right now it's the push towards Heaven that has Wardell backing off. It's great execution to push Wardell out of that position.
30 seconds left.
But Wardell with solid movement to survive.
It opens up A, though. So they take ropes to A Heaven, and they have to play passively towards TSM's site at A. A flashpoint to come out, and the first damage coming into Zachary at 60. But Sabrosa falls towards the screen side on that rotate, so the anchor players have to come up big, and they do with 3 kills, and finally it's opened up. There's only 10 seconds remaining. They'll at least get the plant. But the rotation's going to come through. They've done enough damage, and now you have upper hand positioning, and there you go. Wardell with the verticality gets the kill onto Zachary, who's looking for better positioning towards the elbow side. And as he was trying to put whatever utility he had on the ground, that's going to be canceled out. And Corey's going to be faced on a 2 versus 1. Where we talked about how it was low and not as impactful onto this map, has to come up big here, but unfortunately will not. As Hayes gets the headshot and the defuse comes in for Wardell, it's going to be 10-5 for TSM on this map.
That was solid from TSM. I don't know if you noticed it. It's like tiny little things. Wardell makes a few footsteps, it distracts him. He looks up, FaZe peaks.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not that was intentional, I don't know. You know, it could have just been like, hey, time's ticking down, we got to move. No more shifting, no more walking. Let's try and bait these players out of position. But I like the read, regardless if that was the case or not. Like, the way that it works out. It was a good effort. What are you supposed to do in that situation? The positioning for his opponents made it very difficult. It all came down to timing, and unfortunately, the timing doesn't work out so well.
You wanted Zachary to be alive too, unfortunately, right? So
Yeah. Losing Zachary on that cross definitely was rough. It was just good positioning from Wardell to get there that quickly. Double-digit rounds for TSM, and they're going to try to punish with some aggressive play in mid. And Sabrosa does so. No surprise there. Sabrosa's done this in the past, especially on the last map, getting hyper-aggressive on that defensive side. Very quickly, it gets reduced to one player as Drone just starts lining him up. Finding himself 3 on the round. It's 11 on the board for TSM. Just a few away from closing out the series with a 2-0 victory over FaZe Clan. And again, I think it is important. Not an elimination game. Just want to make sure we say that. FaZe will be knocked down into the lower match to fight for one more opportunity to make it into the playoffs.
that's right. Maybe you saw that on the last 2 kills that they got towards the A side. It was a nice combination of drone with the curveball, and I'm pretty sure it was a flashpoint that came out from Breach as well, from Cutler. And the aggressive play continues from TSM, though. And it's going to be towards B main this time. Sabrosa looking towards the right, but a little bit too late. Couldn't pull onto that trigger. Marv punishes him for it, and they have a 5-on-4 with map control on mid side. Wardell still committed for an aggressive angle, and Corey opens it up.
Drone gonna have a couple of bodies dropping in front of him. Only able to line up one. That puts everything on Cutler. Cutler actually steps up, finds 2 kills with just a Spectre. And now it's the 1-on-2, and FaZe has stepped up big. He's had multiple impressive plays already this series, but this is going to be a difficult one.
Definitely seems as though he's just looking for exits at this point. He's going to save it here. Maybe try to creep up a little bit more if he can towards maybe somebody towards Heaven's side. He still has a lot of time to work with those, so it could still be very doable. So as everybody's still rotating and setting up on a pulse plan for FaZe Clan, they're still in great positioning here. FaZe is just looking for that damage on the exit. But he's creeping up towards the elbow side. Here's the footsteps moving forward. Will get that first kill, trying to spray onto that second. That actually could have been 2 big kills for TSM, and I don't think he would have had enough time for the defuse no matter what. So really, as you mentioned at the beginning of the half, where you wanted to make things really expensive for TSM, when FaZe was moving into the site, getting 3 or 4 kills out of that, which made it a difficult round for both of these teams, right? It came down to whoever lost that or won that round was going to be able to run away with 2 more rounds after that, and it turned out to be TSM. Well, TSM at that point are trying to make it expensive for FaZe into this round to keep the buy very low on their side.
Spike drop.
11 rounds for TSM, but FaZe is still fighting. Still wanting to put that pressure in. Still got opportunity. Game's never over. We've seen some crazy comebacks, even during First Strike. And the Nerd Street Gamers First Strike Open Qualifiers, I think it was Noble who came back from an 11-1.
I think you're talking about the LG and N-Box on
N-Box,
Haven.
that's what it was. It was LG. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. So it's certainly possible that it can happen. And by the way, they won 13-11. Like, it didn't go to overtime. They won 12 straight rounds to win that game.
Yeah.
That's just absurd. So no game is ever truly over, and we've seen more than our fair share of impressive comebacks. FaZe is in the backside of sight, spotted by the ult that gives Baby Bay the easy rocket kill onto his opponent, and things are starting to heat up over on the B site. Cutler's still here in position. There's the ult getting popped. That neural theft will give away the position here of Cutler, who's really just trying to slow things down as much as possible. Fault lines and flashes to keep them locked on site. The knives coming out from Wardell, but they've escaped into B main. With the smokes down, that does leave the player on site kind of alone, and that'll be a quick shot that comes out from Wardell as the knives come through. They've now brought it down to just one. The promise has disappeared. It's all up to Marv. He has to come through this smoke to try and take that battle, but Wardell is watching it. Great retake coming in from TSM. As solid as the execute was from FaZe, great ult utilization. TSM just gets past them, and I gotta give credit to Cutler there with all of the flash utility that was used, the fault line as well, to keep him glued to pillar. It slowed down the cross, and it allowed his team to get into a better position.
Exactly.
And even still, like players in B main, if that's what they decided to do, that's an awkward setup with the way the spike was planted.
No, definitely. I think as soon as I saw Wardell back on his screen, or we saw Wardell on the screen where it was at B Heaven and he's already scoped in, I'm like, okay, well, Cutler did a great job, already wasted enough time, and this is going to be such a hard hold for FaZe Clan at that point. And you saw it from the demonstration that he had from the operator and the Blade Storm. This round, though, map and series point for TSM, and you see how the money is low. Thankfully, they were able to get a spike plant to get a little bit of economy on their side, but they have stingers, they have low buys moving in, double stingers, a sheriff on top of that. It's going to be a tough one for them to try to win. But with 4 players taking the mid control, I'm looking to see if they're going to try to pinch back towards the A Heaven side. But Wardell already rotated up there with the operator. It's still going to be very tough here for FaZe.
They have some mid control, and it looks like they want to lean towards A potentially, because you've got Cypher in this position. The problem is Sabrosa's push. That's going to make it a lot harder. That's going to force them to move faster. Now, because of that kill coming through from B main, they decide to move into Heaven a little bit more. And this is an interesting play. Haste actually pops the ult into Heaven, or into Ropes, excuse me, and now has the backstab on them. So,
wow.
Despite being in a position to potentially put a little bit more hurt on FaZe, decides to go for an audible and move into a better spot. Now, they do end up going back towards A, but not in the manner that we expected. Cutler has just dropped the spike behind their own lines, not behind enemy lines. But they've still got one on the site that they have to contend with. Now, Baby Bay drops out of Heaven, still gets hit by the fault line midair, because physics. There will be time for them to secure the spike, and it's going to be a 3-on-2.
Spike planted.
Player advantage to TSM.
Sabrosa took so long to rotate because they still thought that somebody was lurking there towards that sign. And now that he finally meets up, that's okay though, because again, the spike has only been planted. They probably still have another pop flash here from Cutler, and they also have two smokes available from Haze. So they're gonna try attempt this retake, and already one has been smoked out. So Zachary has to force his hand out by pushing out of the smoke. They get 2 kills. It's on at 1 versus 1, and Baby Bay saves it with the headshot onto Cutler and makes it 12-7.
FaZe still fighting, still staying alive. The money, it's not great. It's definitely not great, but
it's around.
It's the same for both teams. It's kind of like, it's just awkward. You know, Wardell's got 2,600, Hayes has 4,000. You're gonna see a buy come out from both sides. It's just how well-rounded will it be? TSM, they only need to win 1.
Exactly.
But,
that's what I was gonna say.
FaZe is so close to like breaking that money and making this comeback easier. Like if they win this round, TSM's money is just shattered. And then they're at 8 rounds, they can win number 9. They're not that far away from bringing this to overtime. They really aren't.
But that's it. TSM still have 5 rounds to work with to get that money right? So that forced buy, I think it's totally fine here for TSM. A double kill from Cutler. That's going to make things even easier to justify the buy here for TSM in here.
Wardell waiting around the corner with the judge. That's a little bit tough. This is not a great start in the round for FaZe. I mean, we're at the minute mark and it's a 2-on-4. Solid work from Cutler to reduce the forces down as much as he did. And look at the aggression again over on the B site. They're getting so much information from this. They've got Haze pushed all the way through B main, now rounding into Ramen. They know this is going to be a play towards A. See what they can do, though. Wardell's in
30
position with
seconds
that
left.
shotgun. Baby Bay is about to come around the corner. The boom bot will go in first. That's actually from the defensive side. Paint shells go out. I love the move. Baby Bay actually gets into ropes, but
remaining.
you still have to get one across because that's the spike carrier. If that was the spike carrier, that would have been huge. There was an opening there towards the B side, but it looks like it's
10
going to be
seconds left.
curtains for FaZe, as now there's nothing left for Baby Bay to work with. The Rolling Thunder helps secure things. TSM take the series as they win the second map 13-7. Great 2-0 win for TSM here to secure a ticket into the playoffs tomorrow.
Bracket. Very well done from them. You know, you would think you'd get stronger going on the defensive side, right? But for FaZe, it just didn't turn out. They ended up winning 2 rounds on defense. They came into the second half, right? Went down 5-7. So TSM got even stronger going on offense. They played that well. So then silly, you know, TSM going on offense, why did they become stronger where typically teams become weaker?
Yeah, I think overall, though, it's just FaZe's struggle on a defense on a post plant. When Bach was mentioning things how the mid round needs to be worked down for FaZe, I think it's also the post plant positioning. So every single time that, you know, they get a plant and then the TSM allows to play the retake, they're not able to get their grounds or the positioning right for them to hold the sites. Look at these situations right here. Literally, when you had a plant, you had a perfect crossfire setup, you had a person towards A main, but Wardell still manages to come into the site, and that's in 2 occasions that he's able to come into the site and get a 3K to help out his team to move forward. Again, it was also thanks to the kit that that Cutler had. Instead of a solo this time as a breach, you had to try to take him down early so that you could actually have more chances on the retake. It didn't pay off in their favor for FaZe at this point, so that pulse plan definitely needs to be worked on.
Yeah, you know, we talked about it. That last map, their mid round was weak. It was what was costing them rounds. Here, I feel like their mid round was much better, but like you said, the late round just wasn't where it needed to be. Like that play, even from Zachary, it's small. It's very small. It's almost
punishing.
Less than noticeable, but it's huge because it results in a 1-on-2. Had he just stayed on site or gone maybe towards elbow more, maybe that changes the dynamic of the round. I mean, this round as well.
Yeah. And Bach, you mentioned at one point, right? I mean, you know, Cutler being kind of the groomsman, not the groom. You know, and I think very well said. You know, he had several assists, right? And he was constantly using his breach to the best of his abilities. But towards the end, you know, do you think that still remains true in that second half? Do you think Cutler was a full 5-stack for TSM?
Well, I think Cutler's performance changed drastically when they swapped over to the defensive side. I felt like you saw a couple of rounds, like even towards the tail end, where he finds a double kill to open up that final round. Cutler's individual performance definitely changes when he swaps sides playing an agent like Breach. But his sole purpose as Breach is just to be a selfless agent. And he's done that in the past. And the reason I pointed out is because I feel like the audience and the community has been of both Hazed and of Cutler. So I feel like it's important to point out just how vital he is in that role for this team and the way he sets up his teammates for success.
Yeah. And to add on to that too, to give credit to Hayes, because in the past when we were casting TSM during the beta days, we were always talking about how good Drone was as the Phoenix and how Sabrosa is great as a duelist as well. And it's always Drone onto that scoreboard that we always, you know, praise him about, and Wardell with the operator. But this time, like, yeah, Wardell had some great 3 versus 1s or some 3Ks with the operator, with the Fan and Eyes, with the Blade Storm. But we didn't get to mention a lot of Sabrosa or for Drone because there was a lot of highlight reels and plays that was done by Hayes too. So when we talked about, you know, units for FaZe, TSM looked a lot better here too, with the changes that we want to take. So as they're trying to progress and guess different things and try to change the meta, now that they're playing without a Sentinel, this might be another things that team will look at. Is it going to be a viable composition now for a team to play triple duelists, drop the Sentinels, and play for these type of retakes that TSM is doing? So far, it works off very well here versus Energy yesterday, and it worked off versus FaZe. They still have some big tests because they haven't had a chance to play any other of the top 10 teams right now, but they're definitely on the right track.
Definitely on the right track indeed, man. I mean, for TSM fans, they can breathe a sigh of relief, as we said. You know, they will in fact move to tomorrow, right? The work is done. For FaZe, though, you know, not a disappointing loss necessarily. You know, I know Baki were very adamant to say, hey, check it out. Look, it's not an elimination round. Again, they're still very much so in it. Going down to loser bracket, though, they're going to have a tough match regardless. You know, they're going to have to play the loser, or excuse me, the winner of Andbox versus NRG. So it's not going to be easy by any means. And again, hearts will be broken today, and we will see big orgs leave. You know, you said there was a lot of criticism towards Hazed. I was very impressed with that three-piece though that he had, especially on the first buy round. Man, he opened it up wide whenever they were pushing in the B. It was beautiful, loved it. Going back to that last round though, because Baki mentioned, look, check it out. If FaZe wins this round, there's a very real chance they break TSM, and the comeback was real. They didn't do it, but let's say, Buck, theoretically, yeah, FaZe does win that round and they go 8-12. Do you think FaZe had it within them to maybe tie it up and potentially win that round on split, or do you think it was just a little bit too far gone?
It's tough to say, right? You never know. There's so many what ifs you can ask yourself. I do feel like, looking at the way that FaZe was playing in general, that they had the opportunity to really fight back. I think they were starting to find their footing late in those halves. So if you look at the first half, TSM controlled early, and then FaZe started to wake up a bit. And I think you could say the same thing could have occurred in that second half, but it's tough to really know how things would have spelled out in the end, because you could still even have like a thrifty round win come through. Like someone could pop off, or, you know, like Wardell could get his ult as Jet, slice up Baby Bay, pick up the op. All of a sudden, the round dynamic changes drastically.
Right.
So it is difficult to say whether or not they'd be able to do that. I do feel like the narrative in general across this series was FaZe having TSM up against the ropes, but not being able to break the guard. They constantly had them in a position where it was like, okay, just one more round win. And they couldn't quite get to that point. If they had taken it to that next level, maybe the scorelines shift dramatically. I'm talking one round changing, and all of a sudden the dynamic for the entire game changes off of that one round.
And just to add on to that, to answer to that question too, I think it would have been a little bit too late for FaZe, unfortunately, because they had 5 points ahead here for TSM. But when you look at that map overall for that matchup, you saw how many times TSM were very aggressive playing on the defender side, and they were the ones getting the first blood too. So whether it was mid control, Sabroso was there to get a couple of kills. There was one round where you saw Sabroso go with the showstopper against Marv at B main, and he got punished for that, and that's where FaZe was able to win that round. But for other times, when you had Corey trying to open up towards the A side, he was immediately dropped by drone too. So as much as it was for FaZe having some glimpse of hope to try to come back, overall, when you're looking at Corey not able to perform like we saw him do with these individual plays on Haven, then for me, it would have definitely been the nail in the coffin already at that point for TSM.
Well, without question, man, TSM was looking dangerous. They're looking scary, and we will see more of them tomorrow. For FaZe, we're going to see a little bit more of them today. I do want to say Castaways is still going on with their stream between SSG and LG. I do know right now that currently LG leaves. It's been a great series. 17-15 was map #1 on Bind. LG ended up taking it, so SSG needs to answer back. But for you two, gentlemen, I'm going to miss you. I'm not going to lie, Bachman Silly, but I will be seeing you later. Simo and Doug will be replacing you, but you'll be back a little bit later in the day. Guys, don't go anywhere. Check out Castaways on Twitch if you want to keep the action going, but we will be back after this break.